3. All right. You guys hearing a little bit of munchkins in the background. Thank you for joining us to Disclaimers by Ed Johnson. Today is Saturday, 18th, January 2020. Now, Ed had a few things he wanted me to bring in and up. So the first thing I'm going to bring is Miss Nancy Pelosi, quite a while ago, a few years ago, basically was explaining a wrap-up smear. And if you don't know what it is, she explains it perfectly. So go ahead and listen to it.
The difference is we don't engage in the politics of personal destruction. The fact is that if we just talk about the issues, for example, I think it would be interesting to people in these districts to know that the Speaker wants to take away the guarantee of Medicare. So I think talking about issues is where we should be. What is the difference in one person being Speaker than another? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident. But I think I'm worth the trouble, quite frankly. I love the fray. I'm not disrespectful of people's views. I respect any positive things that people want to say, or even negative, as long as it's constructive.
All right. Now, she says she's respectful of other people's views, but she should have put a caveat in there, as long as they align with what she wants. And the constructive, right. what any view that's constructive, in her opinion, is how to keep her in office until she's an old bag of bones. Oh, wait, she's already that. In fact, she's already lost her mind 99%. So with that, Ed, why don't you take it away while I deal with these munchkins?
That's good. Okay, I got you. Anyhow, we'd like to thank you again for joining us this evening. We'd like to bring into a couple things of attention. I've been putting out on email, asking people their intelligence level. And some people have taken offense to it, and I've been enjoying it because I'm glad to see it's offensive. Because you figure you should know this stuff. And people say, well, I didn't get it taught in school. I didn't know any better. Wham, 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 wham. And the bottom line comes down to is like, when are we going to stop being wham, wham, wham? When are we going to start learning and producing? Because this is the bottom line that comes down, folks. We're on the last run of this country. And you have to realize that there's nothing else after this. We're the only place in the world that has a constitution and a treaty. Nobody else in existence in the universe has it. And that's the point when people don't sit there and pay attention to what's really going on. Now, Nancy Pelosi says, oh, well, we can smear a campaign. We can lie, cheat, and steal, but that's okay so long as I pray to my God. Roman King of England, the Bible, King James Bible is what she prays to. She's praying to her God to destroy people. Just like all you people pray to God. It's like, who's God? What God? Why is there a God? I mean, let's be realistic, folks. When it comes down to it, let's be realistic. Who's God? God came from England and Spain. Where's God come to this soil? That was brought to this soil. There was no God in this country until the foreigners brought it. So when the foreigners are dictating to you how to wash your clothes and change your diapers and tell you how to deal with your children, this is just sort of what makes it interesting. And it's really frustrating when I talk to people and they don't get it. Everybody's got their points of view. Everybody's got a view. Well, all right, I'm entitled to my view. You're entitled to your view. Who gives a shit about your view? You don't care about mine. You know, I mean, and this is the point. You know, everybody's out there going, oh, these people have a right to their religion. Yeah. But the United States is not open to the world. We are not the world's saviors, folks. When are people going to come to the real reality of the real world? See, we have a limited space in this soil called the United States Corporation, unincorporation. See, that's the point. You got to realize unincorporation. If you want to be incorporated, go to England. It's like the BAR, the British Auxiliary Register of the King and Queen of England. So when you sit there and register yourself as a corporation member, you're saying that you have no rights. And that's true. You have no rights. You give up your rights when you become a corporation member. But people forget that. You know, I mean, I'm having fun with a lot of people going on, you know, Trump this, Trump that. Who gives a shit? We're talking about our country. The soil, the dirt, the deer, the elk, the buffalo. Once children decide to grow up and be adults again, then we can start getting some things accomplished. Now, I've been putting out the structure, and I've been asking people with the whole circumstances. The whole circumstances is very interesting. I put that with the whole circumstances out there and telling people, well, suggesting to people, because I can't tell you what to do because you're supposed to be an adult responsible for your actions. I'm not your owner. And see, that's the one thing that you don't realize who your owner is. If you believe in religion, I don't give a shit, King James, King God, whatever, Tarzan. Your religion is Tarzan. You know, that's the whole point. You're praying to something. You know, and that is the point, that what are you praying to when it comes down to it? That's the question. Who are you praying to? I mean, you know, and it's not that I'm bragging, but it's like, shit, I've been dead 13 times. I've been through this shit. And then when it comes down to this stuff, people don't get it. God didn't bring me back to life. God didn't save me. Besides being a stubborn guy I am. You know, I mean, I'm here for a reason. At least I think so, you know, educating people. Now, the one thing that I've been putting out is that when you see this, it's very interesting to me because if anybody pays attention to the Queen of England, who we are not supposed to have contact with by law, because the Constitution and the treaties say we're not to have contact and we're not supposed to do a business with England. Okay, but you folks can sell your souls all you want, but I'm not selling my soul for your entertainment. And that's the one thing I wouldn't do when I was up at the Capitol. I wouldn't sell my soul up there. And that's the one thing that people don't get it. You sell your soul all the time. So either you're being honorable or you're not. So when I put up this structure with the Queen of England and a terrorist called Obama. Now, when Obama went in office, I don't know, you know, if you were an American and you're on disability, your disability got cut 30 to 35%. Obama took that money and gave it to Muslims. It was in a newspaper, but nobody pays attention to this stuff except for me. You know, I let people know what's going on, and that's the bottom point. Now, you have to prove, and people go, well, I was born in this country. I have a right. Absolutely, you do not. You have to prove that you're a lawful bloodline native. You have to prove that you're here lawfully. You know, and I've talked to a lot of immigrants. I've talked to a lot of people on the subject. And it's prove who you are. And that's the whole point. Now, if you're in the military, you're an immigrant, all right, that's a buy you have. So that's the whole point. That's a buy you have. But remember, you're still an immigrant, so we gave you the rights to be on this soil. Remember, soil, land is air, water above you. It's privately owned by somebody, not you. See, and this is the bottom line that comes down to these things. Either you know what's going on, or you don't. So when the flag what is that? What is that flag that flies in England? It's called the Jack flag. And if you look at Hawaii, it's the Jack flag that flies in Hawaii. The same state that the terrorist Obama was born in. Handpicked by the Queen of England. So you got to realize that these things are handpicked. These things are not just done. And they're there to keep you going so that way you're confused. But most of you are confused. How many people file their rights? Very few people file their rights. You know, I filed my rights. I don't get the issues that most people go through. You know, I mean, and I don't get the other circumstances, bills or the other crap. You know, I was trying to educate people along my route years back, but everybody wants to go off on this religious point. Well, great. Go religious, all right? Go to your God. But remember, the bottom line comes out with your God. Doesn't give you rights. There's no rights in that Bible book. Absolutely no rights. And that was written in England and Spain. There is no rights from those countries in America. On this soil in the United States, of 48 states. Remember, Alaska and Hawaii are not part of the United States. Alaska, still technically, lawfully, legally, technically, is still no man's land. And everybody goes, oh, no, it's part of the states. We're 50 states. We're not 50 states. We're 48 because if you go to executive order or if you go to Title 28USC3002, the corporation, there you go. You just proved the corporation. You just proved you have no rights. See, if you are claiming that you are an American, prove it. If you don't have rights, you don't have rights. If you have rights, prove it. And see, that's what I'm trying to get to most people. If we all sat there and proved our rights, did this stuff, you know, made sure that our rights were intact, and we filed the paperwork to prove who we are, then we have rights, not privileges. But then the other point is that we have to stand together on these things. You know, that is the one thing that, you know, we got to start standing together. And so many people are, you know, off in their religious point because I don't believe in your God, so you condemn me because I don't believe in your God. And I got people all the time says, well, Ed, you don't believe in God, you know, you're going to hell. And so I say, hey, shit, yeah, I'll go to hell. Shit, I'll go control hell. I'll run hell. I don't give a shit. It's all figment of imagination because it was all mind control anyways to put us in fear. You know, so when you look at the British flag of Hawaii, Hawaii is not part of the United States. It's part of the corporation of the bankruptcy statement that happened with the King of England. And remember the bankruptcy of England, and you're paying the debt. So when you pay your state and federal income taxes, not a dime stays in this country. See, that's the one thing, you know. And I mean, I'm watching this stuff where Lincoln County, Oregon, is putting up these things trying to contradict what I've been putting up. You know, because they're freaking out because what I'm putting up is the facts, and they're sitting there trying to save their ass because they know I committed crimes when they try to murder me. So, and that's the point that we're living. So, yeah, I'm happy that I'm still here. I've been going through a lot of bumps and bruises. I know what the hell chronic pain is. I know what it's like living in severe pain. But this is the truth that we have to deal with. What you are dealing with right now today. So, and you think you have rights. So that's what I'm saying. How do you know you have rights? Did you file your rights? Did you stand up for your rights? Did you make your rights apparently known? That is the point. Did you make your rights known? And everybody keeps going, oh, the public employees, they got to do this. The judge has to do this. The judge doesn't have to do a damn thing. He works for the Article I court, legislative courts. There's two branches of government in this country. One is called the Statute, Codes, and Administrative Rules. That's the Bible. That's King James. That's the Roman Catholic Church. And that's what most people go by. But then they go preaching religion, but they don't realize what they're doing to themselves. So you can preach a religion, and that's what the Constitution gives you your right for your religion. I have my religion. My religion is the Constitution and the treaties. They have rights. Your religion doesn't have rights in the Bible. And everybody keeps going, well, I have rights. I have this right. I have that right. And a friend of mine said to me one day, prove it. Prove you have rights. Nobody knows you have rights. You haven't proven it. So, and that is the structure that we are living right now. Now, I did file the paperwork, and I'm putting things together about how to file on your rights to write off your water, electricity bills and stuff, but you can't go buy a house. You can't go buy a car on your straw man account like so many of these people out there trying to tell you to do. And I'm not going to sit there and name names. I'm not going to try to bash people because maybe they weren't really educated to begin with. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt or the stupid doubt, whatever you want to call it. But we are living in a day that right now Virginia is under siege. They're going after people in Virginia right now for their guns. And people are going, oh, it's not true. They ain't putting this stuff in the media out there. See, once people start realizing the real truth, not the figment of your imagination, but the real truth on what's going on. See, and that's the point. Everybody wants to run around back to religion, and where is the Constitution and religion and Indian treaties? Remember, this is Indian treaties that ran this country with the Constitution, that the forefathers, that everybody claims are the forefathers, came from England and Spain. Even Washington came from England, see? And then they come here and they want these rights, and then you're sitting there telling me that you have rights from your ancestry. And people say, well, my ancestry came from a foreign country, so what does that mean, Ed? So it comes from a foreign country, but have you been here 5 or more generations? See, that's what the Supreme Court said dealing with the Civil War in the Dred Scott case. Read it, because it goes to capital C, lower C, and then it says citizen. So if you claim to be a citizen, that means you are not an American, and you are a corporation member, and you are an enemy to we the people. And that is defined by FDR, and I believe that's Title 8 USC 1232. I don't have that in front of my face, but I'm right now putting up some other information. But I'm just saying that when it comes down to this stuff, is read this stuff. Read H.R. 192. I still got to get a printout. We want to get a certified printout and put it on the website. I'm waiting for a copy, too. I've asked for that for Congress to send me a certified copy. But you have to realize that what the separation of administrative rules are compared to what you think on statute codes are. Because statute codes and administrative rules apply by the religious sector to the corporation members. You know, and everybody keeps going, well, the title of nobility. Well, when you claim, Mr., I'm an activist, you know, I'm an activist. I'm out there to protect people. Now you're taking a claim of nobility, and then you wonder why you're attacked. Congress didn't give you that title. Only Congress could give a title of nobility. But that's the one thing that people don't comprehend, how our system truly works compared to what they think it works. So you're taking a title of nobility, and then you're wondering why you're being attacked. And these cops, they are programmed and trained in this stuff. And I've been on talk shows where cops go, I wasn't trained in that. And then you start talking about a little bit deeper, and then they're like, well, that, and I said, so you weren't trained in it. Well, it's not the way you said it. And I said, what, you don't have an open mind, you can't see what's in front of your face? And I guess that's the problem, too, because people have been so convinced they can't see what's in front of their face. So when people talk about Hawaii being part of the United States, it's not. The only part of the United States is part of the United States Incorporation. Title 28USC3002, the corporation of the British government. And remember, that is the British government. When you take about the federal government, the feds, that's the British government. The corporation of, the Roman Catholic Church works for the Queen of England. I mean, it's so simple when it comes down to it. I put this stuff up. I even put up the tax structure here lately, where we can prove it, and I'm trying to find the banking routing numbers to that now, but we can prove that when you pay state and federal property income tax, any type of taxes, it goes to the Queen of England and the Vatican. And what they do is they come back here and they write it off on your property taxes. They write it off to you. And see, technically, when we get a water and electricity bill, we're supposed to technically autograph that. We're not supposed to pay property taxes. Even the Oregon State Constitution says you're not to pay property taxes. Oregon State Constitution says, they can't charge you for waterways. It's right in the Constitution. But see, people don't read this stuff. And then they want to quote. So, I had fun recently. I went and put this out to somebody just recently. I showed them the structure of the flag of Hawaii. It's the British flag. And it's like people say, we have rights. Well, no, you have no rights because the British flag is flying there. So if you're complaining that, you're a British, then okay. You're claiming you have no rights, so you're a British slave. And that's the point that you got to see this point, folks. You really got to see what's going on in front of your face on these things. So when they're flying the British flag, that's where Obama supposedly came from. That's right, Hawaii. So Obama was handpicked by the Queen of England. This stuff was already set up and laid out. And then you wonder why these things happen. And I hear this from people all the time. It's already been predicted. It's already been set up. It's been laid out. And people go, well, it's following the Bible. Says this, the Bible says that. And it's amazing that you're going by a Bible that's been written to dictate how the mind control is to set you up so that way you do what you're told. So you're already psychologically convinced to be in fear, and that's what you're doing. You're already convinced to be in fear. And then you're teaching that stuff to your children. And they get on their knee to pray instead of standing up and protect themselves. So you have to go pray. You can't defend yourself. And so that is the scariest thing that the children are being taught today. There's no real education. There hasn't been real education in this country for years. When I got out of school in 1980, I saw civics leave. I lost the trades because in school, we had auto shop, we had home ec, Of course, the guys liked the home ec because you could always see the pretty girls. We all did that. Of course, we went to auto shop. We went to welding class. That's how some of us got a trade. We had to learn a trade. We didn't get, a handout or some of these things that people think that they get. That's the one thing that people don't comprehend, the real truth. So when you're sitting there telling people that, Christmas, we just went through that. Christmas is a holiday for the bankers to make money. It's not about Christmas as happy days and, we're praying to who? Jesus, who? See, these are things that I ask people all the time. So when I sat there earlier, and I've been doing to several people this last week, pointing out, and they keep going off about this country, and it's like what's going on with Trump, and that's why I asked that to be played with Pelosi, because this is the way the Democrats do. I know that. They did it to me. I mean, when I was working in the Oregon State House and Senate, I was proving all this stuff, bringing this stuff out, and I was being attacked all the time. So that was crazy. And then when it came down to it, people got scared because, I'm thinking to myself that these people are supposed to know what I know. And these people don't even know what I know. And that's the other point that was horrifying to me. Because I thought people knew real history. I thought people knew what was going on in this country. But then you start finding out that people don't even have a clue about what even is going on in this country. They don't have a clue of what a law is. They don't have a clue what administrative rule is. That's like when the mayor of my town tells me, you're going to do what I tell you to do, and I'm going, screw you, dude. You're my servant. You're my slave. You're paid. You're on this thing, and they keep going running this thing in the state of Oregon. You know how they got incorporated in 1843. Corporation. No, it was not a corporation in 1843. The Democrats and Pelosi, but, Bill Hall from Lincoln County Commissioners and all these people, they lie. They're bluntly out there lying on this stuff. Because we were not that structure in that time. Because it wasn't even at that point. We weren't even in that point, even knew what that was, what that meant. See, that's what sort of surprises me when people sit there and they go, oh, we've been doing this so long. And it's like, prove it. So when they claim that we're owned by the structure, and we are, by the British government, the Vatican, your religious churches, you're a slave. You have no rights. You're saying you're a church member, so you have no rights. So you have to go by what the church tells you. And the church tells you not to stand up. Churches are nonprofit agencies, and yes, they can be sued, so you have to go after their homes and their personal assets. And that's your responsibility and my responsibility. I do that. I do go after these people. And that's the one thing that I've been explaining to people recently is that, and we're doing this, we're starting at, doing this in more than one state, going to be coming out. But now you have to start setting up and start suing them. Legislators, remember, legislative courts. Those are British courts. Legislative courts are British. They're not American courts. And so when you go into these courts, you have to put the paperwork in to the judge. You want to see his oath of office. You want to see if he took an oath of the Constitution. You want to see his bond, his insurance contract. You want him to prove he is a real judge. And a real judge is under the circumstances of the oath of 1789. And that's the whole point. Once you realize what the oath of 1789 is, remember, that goes back to the Indian treaties. And this is a fact. It goes back to the Indian treaties. The treaties are done with the Indians. And then the other major point of all the circumstances with the native treaties comes the Constitution. That is a paper by foreign agents. In the 19 Foreign Agent Registration Act, I do recommend you read it. I do recommend you put the stuff to use. Because it's up to you to do this. A judge ain't going to do it for you. I just got another email, oh, law and justice, and we're going to have this justice going on. Well, I find it amazing. I get all these people that say this stuff. Where is it? Prove it. And then they start doing this, and they come from other countries trying to do this. Well, like I said, the United States is not the world's savior. We're not here to save the world. And as soon as you realize that, we can save our country. We have to save our country. The rest of the country, most of the world is becoming, what do they call that? Cannibalistic. I mean, there are countries that actually sell human meat in the grocery stores. Type it up, human meat in the grocery stores. You'll see 7 countries selling human meat in the grocery store, cadaver meat. And so we are living the reality right now, what's going on. So either you want to be able to stand up and start protecting your bloodline, and that means standing up protecting your bloodline. But you have to know your bloodline. And it's like I get all these other people out there on these YouTube channels that tell me, Ed, what does a bloodline have to do? I was born here. I have a right. Well, the treaties say you don't have a right. The treaties are the law of this soil. And you have to know the difference between soil, water, air, all that stuff. The legal terminology. Person is a dead man. Person does not exist. You know, I'm on the phone correcting people all week. I'm a person. I'm a person. I ask them, what is a person? That's me. No, it's not. Yeah, I know when Obama was in office, they changed the dictionary to person, meaning man, woman, and child. But that's what they did, is they changed the meaning. They rewrote it. Well, it's like I said, like when Obama went in office, all the people that were on disability, we lost a lot of our disability. It went to Muslims and immigrants. Don't you remember the big push way back when everybody was pushing, shouldn't immigrants get medical attention if they had an emergency? Shouldn't their children get fed? And all these bleeding heart liberals going, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But they didn't think about their own children. So your children are supposed to be sacrificed for these immigrants. So your children are supposed to be, turned over to the corporation and be raped, robbed, and pillaged. And people say, well, Ed, you're hard on that one. Yeah, public employees rape children for money. People tell me, oh, you're crazy on that. No, I'm not, because how do you think they got to keep the jobs going? The children weren't being raped and having all the psychological damage, and they wouldn't have to pray to God on this issue or that point. They wouldn't have businesses going. They wouldn't have an income. They wouldn't have tax write-offs. That's the point. You got to realize the tax write-offs is more important than your life. You got to keep that Roman Catholic Church, 1213 going. That's the point where people don't comprehend what the Magna Carta really is. And people will put their Magna Carta in the court. And then they wonder why things don't happen. Well, you're putting it into a fictitious corporation. So when you put it into a fictitious corporation, you have no rights. And that's what gets to me about all these grandparents for justice. And believe me, the National Grandparents for Justice, when that was 30 years ago, Grandma Brown, I have the paperwork. I was left in charge of all that. But nobody wanted to hear. Everybody wanted to go to God. And I'm like, God ain't going to solve the problem. Here's how we have to do it. And people were going, oh, you have to be more compassionate. You can't just go put these people in jail. But they're doing it to you. So it's okay for them to do it to you, but it's not all right for you to stand up to protect your children, your bloodline, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews. See, that's what sort of really disturbs me with the structure. And you get all these talk shows hosts out there that are doing all these talk shows, and they're not talking about solving anything. They're all out there whining, and let's whine together. How about putting together and let's go out there and put them in prison? There's a lot of these guys out there doing these talk shows, with the grandparents and children and all this stuff, but not one of them are going after to put these people in prison. We can't go after and put them in prison. That's what gets to me. Oh, God's going to take care of it. Who's God? What God? Why is there a God? Why are you a God? See, this is the point that always gets to me. Who's God? So when it comes down to this, now we have a future that we have to do this. Now I'm getting off the ball, and I've got some paperwork I'm getting ready to file. I've been talking about it for a couple months now. But I've been watching things going on, and I'm trying to get people to stand up. But, that's the hardest thing, to get people to stand up. So when I do this ballot title and stuff, I know I'm going to be a Lone Ranger. So, but I'm looking at one valid title I'm going to put in it. Separate one I think I need to do, because I put a Senate bill in. Oh, God, I've done it 7 times for the last 15 years. Dealing with the lottery funds. So, and it's simple. You prove that you're native in this country. You're over 55 years old, and in that way, you get a percentage of the lottery funds. Well, you have to prove that you've been in this country 5 or more generations. And then that way, any illegal, the way I've actually wrote it, any illegal gets on that program, and it's proven, they're shipped out of the country immediately with $100 in their pocket. So that way they're just not thrown out there. At least they got enough to get a food and, you know, wherever they do. You're homeless, you can't be homeless because you can sleep anywhere you want. We all done that. At least most of us slept in campers, trailers, slept on the street. You know, I've done all that. Slept in trailers. You know, literally slept on the street. Didn't bother me. So, I mean, you can't get all upset on these things. You have to deal with it. So, because of the circumstances of what's going on, how do we solve the problems? First off, we have to write the criminal complaint. They're not going to tell you to write the criminal complaint. Because a judge, a lawyer, attorney cannot write a criminal complaint, because by law, the only ones who could write a criminal complaint are the injured man or woman, or a benefactor to the injured man or woman, can write it. So if it's an underage child, you know, the parents have to write it, or somebody that is bloodily related, blood tied to that child. And if not, then somebody else can step in, but it doesn't mean it's a guardian, court-appointed. Because the court-appointed guardian works for the British government. They're not American people. And that's the other point when they go to court. I want to bring this up. When you go to court, when you got a grand jury, you got to request a grand jury if you don't know that. You know, you have to request a grand jury of your peers. If it's not in writing, you'll get a grand jury of elected and public employees that have a conflict of interest, making personal financial gains on you. You know, I mean, this is the one thing where Pelosi and them are coming out with now saying that we're going to go after your firearms. We're going to do a national gun deal. That's why the United Nations is in Utah right now. United Nations is in Utah. That's an act of war, folks. Anybody intelligent? Anybody got any intelligent brain power? That's an act of war. I've talked to several people who said, oh, they got the United Nations in here. They're going to protect us. They're going to help us. The United Nations work for the Queen of England. Are you that ignorant? It's like the Chancellor of Germany is the daughter of Adolf Hitler. Are you that ignorant to the real world? See, that's what stuns me, how ignorant people are crazy on this stuff they talk about because they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, you know, this thing going on with Trump. You know, they're pissed off because Trump was standing up on this. You know, was in a grocery store yesterday. And one of the ladies that I'm like, you know, going on, and she's like, we got to get rid of Trump. And I said, so explain to me what's wrong with Trump. Well, she had no real answer. I said, didn't you know that, you know, Trump's putting your rights in place? You have a right. If you don't stand up for your right, who else is going to do it? You know, and then it turned out she was an immigrant. So it was like, oh, she didn't like it because she was worried about being shipped out. Well, too bad, so sorry, and why did you come to our country first? Could have went to another country on the planet. You didn't have to come here. See, we're not the world's savior, and I don't give a shit what Pope John or, you know, the Pope Francis said, because I already filed on Francis and the Queen of England back in 2013 for their souls. It's a contract, own them. Remember, they're a private corporation. We the people. They're claiming they're a private corporation, and they're not. They're a corporation. Their men and women are non-profit agency. So they have personal liability to we the people, the natives. It's like the Bankruptcy Act that was done in 1933. The British government went bankrupt. The King of England's bank went bankrupt to we the people. The national debt is the British debt that owes the native people. That's why they keep going and they collect your taxes and then they pay off part of the debt, but then they're sitting there making all that money and putting it in their pocket. And they know it. And they're laughing to the bank and they're making you feel guilty about what you're doing. You know, I love the way Democrats will do that, you know, or religious people, especially religious people, do that. You know, they try to put reverse psychology on you, and it's like, you know, why are we even arguing about half the stuff? How come people are not standing up and protecting their children? That's the thing that gets me. You know, you guys are not protecting your children. There should be more group effort. There should be conversations every day going on the internet of how we're going to sue this person and this public employee for damages for what they did to this man or woman. Getting together so we all sit there and start filing the paperwork and we're witnesses to this. And you try to get people, a group of people together to be a witness, and everybody's like, we don't have time. But then again, they want everybody to jump for them and stop their life for them, but they don't have time for somebody else. You know, welcome to America. Or, as everybody else would say, welcome to democracy. See, that's the point, democracy. What is democracy? Everybody keeps talking about save the democracy. We don't want to save the democracy. And people, this is the other question I was having this week here recently too with people. People going, oh, the woman's right to vote. Women always had the right to vote. But remember, voting didn't come into this country until after the Civil War. Clarify, it didn't come in until after the Civil War. People go, well, we voted before that. No, we didn't. Congress voted on their own self and put their own self in it because we didn't have a right to vote. That is the point. We did not have a right to vote. Senate and House members are the only ones that have a right to vote. But their vote only affects them, not we the people. There's the soil. They're involved in the soil end of it. They're not involved in we the people. So they don't have rights. They have privileges. So when people start using, like I said, when people start really jumping on and using the word God, who's God, what God, why is there a God? Why is your God better than my God? They only want to argue about religion and tit for tat, and it's like, when are we going to grow up and be men and women again? And that's the saddest point. People are not men and women again. And so people sit there and they argue, and they don't even know how to stand up for their rights. And then you try to explain how to do something, and then they question you without doing the research. The saddest part, people want to talk, but they don't even know what they're talking about because they have no knowledge of what they're talking about because they don't do the research. They don't read. They just take posting notes and just do what everybody tells them to do and run off on things. And I watch that all the time. You know, I always love when people try to tell me this is a foreign country and we got to do this, or, you know, Rome and all this stuff. And it's like, Rome has nothing to do with we the people. You know, and that's the whole point. Rome is not part of this country. And people go, well, we have to go by this Roman law. No, we don't. We have a constitution and a treaty. And the native treaties are the law of the land, and it even says it in the Supreme Court, and they're trying to change that. They're trying to change your history to benefit you so that way, or benefit them so that way you don't see the truth in the past. Because you're not supposed to know what the truth is. And that's the point. You're not supposed to know the real facts of life. So I always find it interesting when people talk about God. How come they're not talking about how to become free? How come they're not talking about the rights of fishing been taken away from them to feed their families? Oh, God doesn't save your fishing rights unless you're out there. How come you're not talking about the right to hunt, to feed your family? And everybody wants to read a Bible instead of talking and teaching the children how to fend for themselves, fishing and hunting. You know, and this is the one point, and this is what gets to me, because all this religion talk, what is going on with it? There's nothing being done. You're not protecting your families with the religion. You're wasting life. How come you're not planting food, growing gardens? How come you're not collecting rainwater, protecting your family? See, that's the point. Where are you protecting your family at? So it's disturbing. Nobody's protecting their family. It's all crazy stuff that people are talking about that are not paying attention. So when it comes down to, like I said, I put this question out, an email out to people and on Facebook, how smart are you? And I put the structure of Obama and the British flag of Hawaii. Because if you actually read the structure of Hawaii itself, it actually says on Hawaii's own Facebook, the Queen owns them. And so that's what gets to me, how people don't comprehend that factor, how the Queen owns them. And when people want to talk about things, they don't even know what they're talking about. So look at the flag of Hawaii and then tell me about your structure, about your freedom. You ain't free. Because you talk about religion, and that's run by the State Attorney General's office, by the Secretary of State, by the Bar, the British Registration of the King and Queen of England. And you're not seeing this fact, are you? You're not seeing how this stuff really affects your life. Because you're not too worried. Some of the people ain't worried about their children, that's a fact. I mean, I talk to people all the time about their kids, and they're like, well, I've raised them, they're 18, they're on their own. And so that's the whole point. People raise their kids, just throw them in the street. Is that what we're doing today? They're not educated to survive on the street. They're not educated to hunt and fish. They're not educated to know anything but go to a food shelter program and with their hand out begging. They don't know how to dig up vegetables. They don't know how to know what a fruit and vegetable is in the wild. That's why cities and parks should be growing food. That was one of the bills that we put into the state of Oregon years ago, and it was going. We got funding for a while for the schools, but it should have been done a lot longer. And the one thing is, I got to say one thing, that the Girl Scouts of America in Oregon have been planting food and raising and collecting rainwater around the state. And they're teaching the Girl Scouts. I don't believe that the boys should be in the Girl Scouts. I don't believe in this cross-dressing stuff. If you want to cross-dress, leave God out of it. Number one, who gives a shit about, oh, God? The bottom line comes down to is that we don't want to see this cross-dressing stuff. You know, the average man or woman don't want to see this stuff. You know, it sure bothers me when I see this stuff going on. I grew up in San Francisco in Haight-Ashbury days, and I grew up in the days where gays and lesbians had respect for one another. Today, it's less flaunted in the street corner. There's no respect. There's no honor. There's no pride. I always love when they talk about gay pride. What is gay pride? So I mean, so you're proud that you're out, you know, yelling and screaming that you're embarrassed of yourself. See, people don't want to listen to the arguments, the wishy-washy, whatever the wham-wham is today. Because you don't want to listen to your own wham-wham, and then when you wham-wham, Then you want everybody else to listen to it, and everybody else doesn't want to listen to it, and that's the point. We're not listening to each other. So, and that's the problem why the kids are having a problem, the lack of education today. Lack of intelligence that is not taught today. There's nobody teaching this. And so that is the point. How come it's not being taught in school? How come your rights are not being taught in school? See, and when it comes down to dealing with the state, this is where the state of Oregon, doing this deal around the state of Oregon right now on your property to give it over to the Queen of England. 2000, Kate Brown and the law firms of Oregon wrote a bill to own all your assets, to own you. And I'm just trying to explain that to everybody, and nobody caught it. And everybody's like, well, now they're worried that they're getting and breaking rules and regulations. You know, it's like people were telling me, oh, this deal with Virginia. You know, they're already confiscating guns. They've been doing it in Oregon behind your back, and you don't even pay attention when people tell you the truth. Yes, there's already been people in Oregon who've had their guns confiscated, their house broke in at gunpoint. I mean, even when I was in ICU, I mean, you know, they robbed my house, stole my money. I mean, my deal was I wanted to put up my structure on my property, so I had an 8-foot cyclone fence. You know, and I mean, I had people that are going, oh, Ed, you can't put an 8-foot fence up. That's against city standards, city code. I don't give a shit. It's my property. Like I said to the city, prove the city. I said to the mayor, prove you own my property. Prove you own my soil. I paid for it. Show me where you paid for it. Show me your receipts that you paid for my soil. And then you want me to pay taxes to your Queen of England? To pay for your employment as a public employee? And that's really what it really comes down to, is that they want you to keep funding their structure, and by the Constitution and the Supreme Court, we're not supposed to have anything to do with the British government, foreign governments. We are supposed to take care of our own soil and land, and we can't sit there and do that and get food and water off our own land. You know, we're a disgrace to ourselves by that. And so we're failing ourselves. And so it always gets to me. Everybody keeps pleading, you know, oh, we got to save Israel. What about saving the United States? What about saving your own children? What about saving your own circumstances? Doesn't that come into anybody's intelligent thinking at that point? Everybody's got it on different directions, but what about saving your family? What about saving your children? And that's the point. When you own your child, then you have rights. And most people don't get this point. You know, and that's the one thing that, you know, it is getting down to the point we are dealing with the circumstances where the United Nations is taking over this country. You're arguing about, oh, we have rights, but you're not out there standing up for your rights. You're not protecting your children. I love my child. Bullshit. You know, there are some people out there are educating their children who are standing up, but there's a lot of people out there, oh, I just do what I'm told. And then you come to us with your problems, and then when we stand up and start writing your instruments and showing you the right way, and then you want to go back to somebody else who's telling you, oh, we have to go by the religion way, all right? And then you're wondering why you're not getting anything accomplished. So, and I mean, I'm watching this. I'm living this. I've been writing this stuff, doing this stuff with people for a long time. Everybody knows it. And so when it comes down to it, yeah, it's interesting when you really think about it that the British flag is flown in Hawaii. All right? And then people are going, oh, Obama was the best president. He was handpicked by the monarchies in Hawaii from a foreign country, dictating to you how to live, bringing immigrants into this country, you know, and this is the one point that you're not comprehending what the circumstances of what the damage has been done to you and your family. You know, it's like the thing is that we're putting out Nancy Pelosi said how to go after people. She made it apparent. That's what we're going through this structure right now because Trump didn't bow to the Queen of England. Pelosi works and takes her orders from the Queen of England. Roman Catholic Church. Haven't you ever heard Nancy Pelosi the way she talks? It's all about God. God is going to do this. Pray to God. I pray for Trump in God's name. And her God, remember, her God is the KKK. Remember, she dresses in white. She talks about the white supremacy. And then people don't get that one. See, that's what stuns me. When people like her talk about what they're doing to you and your family, and then you don't get what they're doing to you, and you think it's acceptable. You know, I mean, I watch this crazy stuff go on all the time. So that's why I put out the test, you know. Here's a test to people. You know, the Hawaii flag. Hawaii is part of the corporation, Title28USC3002. It is not part of we the people, is not part of the United States. It's part of a foreign corporation, not of our country. It's a British corporation of a British country. It's that simple, folks. It is that simple. And so when we're not getting that and we're losing our reality and we're not paying attention to the damage that is happening to the children here. You know, that's why I put this thing out with Nancy Pelosi saying this thing, and that's why we played it in the beginning of the talk show. That's what you guys should be passing out right now. Asking the question to the media, going, hey, we're spending millions of dollars a day on this fraud. Why Nancy Pelosi is getting paid $100,000 a day right now for doing this fraud by you, the taxpayers. Everybody in Congress is paying $100,000 a day. And, you know, you're not getting it. And they're laughing to the bank. They're literally laughing to the bank going, these people are stupid. Trust me, they are saying that. Hung around these people enough years. Seen their game, seen what they do. And they truly do that. So, and once you comprehend that you have rights, not privileges, stand up for them. But you're the one who has to prove it. And once you do that, then we can start changing this country. Because then that way they can't sit there and try to whine and complain and say, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. We have to know the right court. So you have to file in the right court. What court is it they have to file in? You know? You know, it's like Bill Maher and Pelosi right now, you know, they're marking Trump. You know, and that's the other thing, you know, how come nobody's standing up and saying this is bullshit? They're just letting the circus go on. You know, I mean, you know, so everybody wants to go after Trump. For standing up for what? His country. People voted Trump in because of what... If this country would have went to Hillary, you would have already had the guns taken away from you right now today. You would have been shot in your homes. No shit. You would have been shot in your homes. And they're still getting ready to do that. If you don't turn in your firearms, they're shooting people right now today in the structure. You know, I've argued with people on it already, and it's like, don't you get it? Haven't you people are putting up stuff on the internet, and people are not paying attention when they're coming to people's doors, putting guns to their head and taking their arms. And people say, they can't do that, but they're doing it. Where are you at? See, that's the point. They're doing it, and you're not doing the damn thing but sitting there whining and crying. And you don't even give shit about your friends and neighbors. That's the point. And I hate to say it, folks, you're proving it. So, I mean, this is the saddest part. We're living with all this crazy shit, and I don't want to keep going on in this, but I want to make sure you comprehend the structure of what's really going on with the Pelosi and all this structure, and do you really comprehend what the treaties are, because Washington, D.C. is not part of the United States of 48 states. It is part of a corporation, not of we the people. And once you comprehend the circumstances and separation of that, because I hear this crap all the time. Oh, democracy, on all these Republicans are talking, we got to save the democracy. How about save the republic? You know, it really disturbs me when I hear these Democrats yelling and screaming, we got to save this democracy instead of saving the republic, instead of saving the families. And it is one of those. Who's saving the families? So, and we got to stand up on this stuff. I mean, and you know, it's just disturbing when it comes down to it that, you know, people don't comprehend that the British flag is on the Hawaii soil, and it says right there in the Hawaii direct structure. If you look up Hawaii and read the foundation of Hawaii from the British government, it says it right there. See, that's what it just sort of stuns me. How come when it's right in front of people's face, they can't comprehend what's in front of their face? So, anyhow, with that, we're going to go on for an hour. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor, and we'll go from there.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody would like to bring up anything tonight?
What court do you file your bloodline in?
Okay, so what you're doing with the court on your bloodline, first you got to file on your bloodline to prove that you are native. So once you're able to prove it and people go, well, I can do it on 23 bloodline test. You want to do it by going to the grave sites in your bloodline history. Stay away from 23andMe and all these online structures because they're going after to own your bloodline.
Are you talking about my genealogy charts?
Right.
Stay away from that, or you?
Genealogy chart, you have to do that by, you know, your bloodline in this country, by grave sites, grandma, great grandmother, grandfather. Does that make sense?
If there are grave sites, some of them don't have sites.
Well, I know, but the first off, we got to go through that direction to prove it. And if you don't have that, then that way you go through other ways. But if you know your mom and dad, if they have passed on, usually that information is in the city and county charts of their grandparents. Does that make sense?
Okay, so can I use what I have established on my genealogy.com tree?
Well, yeah, you can. Let's see, have you been able to prove your bloodline through that structure that they are on this soil for 5 generations?
I can prove my descendancy, yes.
Okay, so if your bloodline goes 5 more generations, that means you're lawful, and that's the 14th Amendment.
And who do I show that to? You
file that with your local police department. You file it with your House and Senate members. Because now they've been notified that you are a native, not a citizen.
And
if you're a citizen or a national, you have no rights.
And what do they do with that information?
Well, they take that information and they're supposed to file it and record it by law, and they're not supposed to have contact with you unless you ask for contact.
So
that includes state and federal property taxes. That includes when you get pulled over traffic tickets. You know, if you go in the hospital, you know, it's like I don't have ID when I go to the hospital. They know who I am.
Down because they took me off, and I think it's because I called.
So am I supposed to say that it's on record somewhere? You dig it out?
No, you have to produce the record. So when you file it with the House and Senate, you have a copy. Now you filed it with the House and Senate. Now you got evidence that's proven that you filed it with the corporation state, and now you have evidence to prove it.
And so does their county recorder stamp it or something?
Say it's on.
Hold on a minute. Go ahead. Speak up, guy. If you're going to speak over us, go ahead and speak up first.
May I?
Go ahead.
Okay, it is a technical question.
Okay.
Question. Is it possible to listen to this phone call online? And if it is, how to do it?
Is it possible to hear this call online again? We'll say that again. I didn't get the last part.
And if it's possible, how to do it? What is the website?
Oh, well, we have the information on new.org and trackers, and I'm going to walk through some of that because it's proving your bloodline, like I was saying to this one lady, is like proving your heritage. So if your family goes back in this country 5 or more generations, it's proving your great-grandfather. And that is proving like their death certificates, the funeral homes, their grave sites. If they were in the Civil War. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It does not relate to me. I was born in Ukraine.
Well, yeah, no, I know that. I know who I'm talking to. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you on that one, but that's the whole point with that. You know, and that's the point that with immigration, they got, you know, they're not too worried about it because when they're gone, they don't have nothing to worry about, you know. And, you know, we had that conversation. So, but when you file your paperwork, it's also, too, you want to make sure you file your paperwork in the museums, your local museums, because the museums could only keep legal or lawful records. They cannot keep legal information.
Oh, there we
Museums will have that information, and you can put that in, and that's certified. So you always want to make sure you get a certified stamped receipt. Now, what I did on mine is online, and mine is all over the place, because I actually publicized mine in a newspaper for a month.
He just told us. Oh, where'd you go? Just
Go ahead.
Told us
What we saying?
the museum. The pews run.
Well, speak up.
The museum, it's lawful.
So, but anyhow, I filed mine in the House of Senate, and I published mine in a newspaper for a month. And not only that, I published in a month in the newspapers that I actually put in the newspapers the certified stamp I have that's filed in the records from the Queen of England saying the United States is not a colony, it is a free country. And I have that from the Queen of England stamp as early as 1993. So, and that is the one thing is proving this stuff. We have the information, and so when you're filing your records, you want to let your police department know. You got to realize they're still going to try to go after you and say, if you don't have a driver's license, you don't have that, or this, we're going to come after you. I'm fighting them right now myself on it. And so I thought, you know, I've been trying to get things done through the House and Senate, but they're, basically I was informed if you don't win a court case, we're not going to do anything. And so I said, all right, then I'm going to take you guys to court and I'm going after your homes. And they said, what? And yes, you can, because they're a nonprofit agency, so you can actually go after their homes, their assets. And I will be putting that together when I put together my court case coming up, and I'll be putting that together and making that public as how to do it. Because you have to go after their homes, but the main thing is that you have to file the criminal charges on these men and women who harassed you, who told you didn't have rights, who wrote you tickets. And they say, well, the ticket wasn't paid for, you can't do anything about it. It's not, because it's fraud, extortion, you threatened my life. When a cop pulls you over, even though a cop cannot technically pull you over because they can only use their lights in life and death emergency situations by law. So when they pull you over, you got a guy coming up to your car with a gun. He's threatening your life. If you don't pay him, he's going to kill you. And people say, well, Ed, you're reaching out. That's a little too far. I said, no, it's not. Because I don't know what that guy is going to, what his mind is with that gun on his hip. I don't know what he's going to do or what that woman's going to do with that gun on her hip. Remember, I'm using the word gun because they're a corporation member. And remember, all police departments, and you always want to do this, you could ask them, is you want to see if they're registered because every police officer has to have a concealed license permit. If they don't have a concealed license permit, when you push them on it, they are terminated from their job because it's a violation of their job description. So they have stuff in their job descriptions that they are liable for. So if they don't have that registration, then you file on them. And this is the one thing that we've got to start doing more and more, putting together these things and filing on these people to prove on their job descriptions. Because if they don't honor their job descriptions, they're not entitled to have employment, and that's paid off by the debt notes of the Bankruptcy Act of 1933. And that's where it all comes down to, is the Bankruptcy Act. And this is where people got to put common sense together, because it's like when the Civil War happened, we fought the British government again. Everybody keeps saying we fought the South. Who's South? Remember, the South wanted religion in slavery. The North said, no way. And that is the point. We didn't want slavery. We didn't want taxes. And if you look at all the treaties on the West Coast, all of the treaties with the British government, the Roman Catholic Church, were not to pay taxes. That's the treaties in our country that says it.
Okay, got a question for you.
Go ahead.
I found on my Ancestry.com I have a fourth great-grandfather and fourth great-grandmother born in Ohio and one born in New York.
Okay, so that means you're lawful and your children are definitely lawful. Your grandchildren are lawful.
So what do I need to know? I mean, do I have to have documents showing their birth certificates?
Right. You want to put together their information and put it together so you can prove your bloodline with their bloodline. And then that way, when you're passing down your assets and property and you get it off the tax rolls, so that can't be taxed, and you have to make sure that filed is presented with that as well.
So I need either the headstone photo?
That works. Yeah, that works. I mean, because you're putting together the evidence, and so it's your responsibility to put together. So the headstones, photographs, and you write it down, date. You go to the city or county where the headstone is. You want to have a certified copy of what's filed on it.
Well, I'm not going to head all the way over to New York, but I'll figure out how to get that.
Oh, no, you can do that online. They'll send it to you online.
Okay. Well, I have a copy of it.
Okay.
Ancestry.com provides those kind of hints, and they come
yeah,
with
but
photos.
Ancestry.com is a private corporation, and so if you don't, you got to make sure, because sometimes I haven't seen them go after anybody, but under their private corporation, they have the rights entitlement to it.
Right, but they've offered it to us. I mean, all I have to do is click a picture in my phone, and I have it now.
Right.
It's public now.
So, and now with Ancestry.com, now you wrote Ancestry.com to confirm your information on it, did you not, or did you?
I haven't done anything.
Okay, because you can confirm your rights, your bloodline with them, and once you confirm your bloodline with them, and now you have recorded record. Now you have recorded record. Because if they don't dispute it and you get it filed, now you have you have proof.
Okay.
It's looking at how to develop the proof in these circumstances and how to work these issues. And people don't think about how, what, why, and how. And I've been through it myself. And then when I started looking at these things and started putting this together, and then all of a sudden I wasn't getting problems. It's like I go to the hospital. Every time I've been in and out of the hospital, the 13 times I died, you know, we need you to sign this paperwork or whatever. I'm under duress. You wouldn't want me to commit a crime, would you? I never sign paperwork in a hospital. I don't pay the bills. Because under House Resolution 192, the British government went bankrupt for me, and we the bloodline natives, and they're liable for the bills under their circumstances. Because they owe us.
Question.
Yes.
Can you, like, publish a claim that, you know, your ancestry does go that far, and if anybody says different, come forward with proof?
Absolutely.
as opposed to providing the proof yourself?
Well, you want to be able to have some proof with it, because if somebody comes back and you have no backing of it, and in that way you could be liable, and that could be fraud.
Okay.
So you don't want to put yourself in a fraudulent position. You want to make sure that you have evidence backing it up, so that way you don't put yourself in a conflict of interest, because that's the other point that I just brought that up, is that we have on the web, I think we have it on the website, but if not, I'll get it out and I'll post it up on the YouTube channel tonight. The conflict of interest statement with a state and public employee, with a judge. You always want to get, when you go to court or anything, you always want a conflict of interest statement from them. Because people don't realize how important a conflict of interest statement is, because remember, they make their living off of the court system. They make their retirement off the court system. So do they have a conflict of interest, or are they actually doing something to protect you and them? And that's where it's so important with a conflict of interest statement, that you're putting it in so that way you're protecting yourself as well as them. If that makes sense.
If I may, you talk.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just curious what the website is that you were referring to.
Our website is new.oregon, O-R-E-G-O-N, Trackers, T-R-A-C-K-E-R-S, and we do have the lawful and legal information on that website.
What was the third word?
Trackers, T-R-A-C-K-E-R-S.
Thank you.
And so we do have it up on the website. I do have the forms on the website. If you want to get out of state and federal income tax, you just file the form. That's how simple it is. And if you go online, and I think we should have it on the front page, but if you go online and you type in on YouTube, Congress's IRS taxes voluntary, you'll watch them tell you that. Now, it was back in 2014, I think it was, no, it was later than that, 2004, where IRS and congressmen were coming out to the media and says, well, I pay my taxes and we don't know why people are saying this. Well, by law, they have to pay their taxes because they're an employee. They're getting a de facto dollar of the corporation that was invented in 1933 for them to have a job. So it's their de facto money that they have to be able to prove it. And see, most of my work that I grew up, I did it on labor. You know, and so when you do labor, you don't have to report your income taxes, because income taxes are for taxes and are for interest and dividends on investments. That's the way it's even in the tax code. Miss Jackson even brings that up from the IRS, that former IRS director, that to try to put in prison over it. Yeah. Had a lot of IRS people that have gone to prison, that have spoke up, that says there's no taxes, it's all a fraud, and it's true. Because when you pay state and federal income tax, 100% goes to the Queen of England and divided with the Vatican. And then it gets divided down through churches. And so when you register your kid with the state, that's how the state comes in and takes away your child without a warrant. Because when you register your child with the state, that's how they steal your kids. So you sign your rights over to them to steal your kids. And people don't realize that.
When do you do that? When do you sign them over to them?
Well, when you register your child, when you get a birth certificate and you register the child with the state, when you get a birth certificate with the Secretary of State, you're saying to the lawyers, to the bar, that you're not responsible for that child, so the lawyers have to take over the responsibility for that child, and that's how they use the excuse to come in your house without a warrant, because, oh, somebody called and said you weren't taking care of your kid right, so you filed it with the state that says you're not responsible. So we don't have to take you to court. We can come take that kid without a warrant.
Can they do that also at the marriage certificate too?
Actually, they can, but they haven't. That's the funniest part. But they can. But, you know, it would be nice to see them doing a little bit more of that one. That would be fun. But But yeah, because when you have a marriage license, you're registering yourself with the state, and you're having, what does that say? Fornicate. What is, I'm not going to be blunt, the word fuck means. F-U-C-K, fuck under the consent of the king. And that's a marriage license. And that is through the House and Senate, and that is through your city and county. When you register for a marriage license, you're saying, I'm asking the King of England, or the Queen now, permission to have intercourse with my mate.
Ed,
And that's really what it comes down to.
Ed,
Go ahead.
yeah, wouldn't that also fall under that Board of Examiners versus Swimmer that the states cannot license? So, I mean, getting a driver's license, getting a marriage certificate license, getting a license for anything. Basically, the states really can't license.
Well, that is true. And that's why I do recommend people are going to get married, write a contract. That way you own each other. So that way when the state tries to interfere, I have a contract. The only way this can go to court is me or the partner take it to court. You can't interfere with the contract. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. Yeah, and that is Article 25 of the Supreme Court decisions. You have a contract. You know, the court has to do that. And remember, lawyers cannot represent men and women. Lawyers can only represent corporations. And that is law. Go ahead.
What about if you put it in your Bible?
What about the Bible?
You could sign that stuff in your Bible, and that's, I mean, in Utah, that's legal.
Yeah, I know, but you got to remember your Bible is still controlled by the Queen of England. That is a foreign book from a foreign country. That's not an American book. So that's how
That's a new one on me. I've never heard that.
Well, that's how they can use it against you because, remember, the Bible came from England and Spain. It did not come from this country originally. It was brought into this country. That's why the Christians came in and raped and murdered the Indians and called us savages and said, now, if you don't go by the Christian way we want to believe, because you're a savage, because you live out in the sticks or you live in a teepee instead of living in a stick-built home, you know, that's the one point people don't comprehend because, you know, before we were invaded, we didn't have issues of that. We moved with the seasons. So when it got rainy and nasty, we moved to the drier weather. We you know, the natives worked around the native or the weather stream, I should say. So, but if you're going by the Bible at that point, that's where you are registered with the Bible, and anybody who's a church member, is a registered church member, is abided by House or by Senate and administrative rules. So you don't have rights. You have to go by the city codes. You have to go by the state codes. Because you're saying, I'm going and I consent to the Queen of England right now by the religious point of the Bible. I don't have rights. That's why the Bible, I don't recommend people using the Bible. A lot of people do that. I recommend that you write your affidavits and you write it as a lawful bloodline native or for an immigrant, the fine immigrant, and file it and claim your rights of status. Because religion goes back to the structure of the... Have you ever heard of the Treaty of 1213?
Yep.
Okay, so, and you know about the Magna Carta then, right?
Yep.
So the Magna Carta and the Treaty of 1213 is from England, isn't it?
It is.
All right. Now, Christmas is from England. Christmas started 1841 at Macy's department store. They didn't have business in December. So Macy put up a sign, called it Christmas, and that's how Christmas started, 1841. And that's all real historical records that's in the Seward and London history books. I even posted that up because I did the research on that. I think it was like 6 years ago when we brought up all that stuff with all the filings and what they did in the city of London and the circumstances of Macy's, and that's the Macy Day Parade we have today, what they push on. So it's like we get all this information and we think it goes back, and This history goes back, but they've rewritten a lot of history. I mean, even when Obama was in office, they rewrote some of our history and administrative rules in the court system. Like I said, Obama's from England, actually Kenya, but he was controlled by the British government, the Queen of England. Still today, like I said, Hawaii has the British flag. Hawaii is not part of the United States. And people don't get that. They see the flag, but they don't incorporate that. And they get told, oh, that's part of the United States. So and then some people say, well, then if that British flag is that, so we're a British colony. And I try to explain to people, that's the point. We're not a British colony. They're putting that flag up because now you got to put when you step out of the deal and you start putting these things together and you start going, holy shit, this is how it really works. So now you got the British flag, and that's from Hawaii. Hawaii technically is not part of the United States. It wasn't part of the corporation until 1859. It wasn't part of the corporation, or what they call in the part of the United States, until 1859. Everybody knows that in history in school. But that's part of the corporation. That's not part of we the people of the original 48 states that went to the Civil War. Does that make sense?
It's a lot to learn.
No, I know it's a lot of mouthful. I mean, I know it's crazy. I mean, like I said, I had arguments with a couple people this week over religion, and especially over Hawaii, and they're yelling at me going, you don't get it, they're part of the United States. I'm going, all right, go type in and tell me what flag does Hawaii have. And then it's like, it's a British Jack flag. And I'm going, now you're putting the pieces together. Because Alaska is still no man's land. And they said we bought it, but we bought it by the corporation. And see, that's the point. We still own, the native people of this country owns the corporation. Even Donald Trump told everybody that 3 years ago after he got elected. And everybody was going off on him about the oil drilling and all this stuff. And he says, hey, as the president of a corporation, it's your job to go after the polluters, and this is our job. He's the president of a corporation. He's got to run a corporation. If the corporation gets shut down because the people don't want it, it's that simple. He has to honor that, and he's already told everybody that. That's why Pelosi and everybody's going after him right now today, trying to take away and put him in jail for standing up, because if Pelosi gets this with the Roman Catholic Church, with Pelosi gets this with the Roman Catholic Church, we're going to have guillotines set up, and if you're not believing in Ahmed or Christianity, we're going to be beheaded. And that's what we're looking at this right now today. That's what this whole fight about is in the House and Senate right now. I mean, I've been emailing this stuff back and forth with senators the last couple of years. I talked to some of these, literally, I talked to people on the phone, senators and congressmen on the phone on this stuff. They know it, but they're caught in the middle because it's like, how do we get this out yet? And I'm going, well, if you guys can start standing up where you don't get, people who are traveling without license and start saying in your district you're not going to arrest them. And they're like, well, we do that, then we're not going to be able to be in office again. And I'm like, so what? If you stand up, 10 of you stand up right now today and everybody gets in the country, you're all going to be reelected. Because everybody got the truth. Everybody stood up and said, hey, we got it. But see, that's the point. Separation is financial income. Your children are worth money. That's the birth certificate bond. That's what FDR put in place. It's like dealing with your property rights. You have to file on that property. Now, what I did is I filed on my soil. I got the numbers from the city and county, or the state when it was registered. Then I went back and did the research on my property when they put the plat map in on that, and that was done from Toledo, Ohio, and Toledo, Oregon, when they did the plat map, and that was done in 1898. That was before what they call a corporation. And so the state of Oregon is putting up a video trying to say after 1843 that we're a corporation. We were not a corporation. They're lying because we have a treaty of 1846 with the British government. We're not a corporation. And I have that treaty and information. And I've served that on a lot of these people, and they know it. When I was up at Capitol when I was working for the Senate. They know it for a fact because under that Treaty of 1846, it says we shall not pay taxes. We shall not pay a hunting and fishing license. And so when they did the Corporation of 1859, and then they redid the Administration Act February 14th of 1859, the corporation, even under the corporation, it says we're not to pay hunting and fishing tags. But then they started changing the administrative rules, at least in Oregon, and now on the front page of Oregon is the first time in years that I've seen that they actually got basically the original Constitution up there, where we're not to pay taxes. We don't have to buy, hunting and fishing tags. We don't have to pay waterways or, buy a boat permit for our boat to go fishing. And even by law, I got the inland rights on that one. If you're inland, you don't have to buy a fishing and hunting license, actually, for hunting and fishing in the bays, the estuaries, and all that. And that's law. But these guys are saying, oh, now we got to pay. If you don't pay us, we're going to shoot you. And it's like, these are terrorists running by the Queen of England, and they're trying to bankrupt this country from the inside out because they cannot change their Constitution and treaty. The treaties of the natives stand by the Supreme Court, and they're so pissed off because they can't do anything, but people don't comprehend. And most of the Indian nations, they're so wrapped up in, oh, well, we're trying to sell this and we're trying to do this, and they're not even paying attention to raising food and protecting their own bloodline. I mean, when they were doing this stuff with the oil rigs over in Dakota, I'm talking to a couple of the chiefs and their wives going, you guys can file. You have to file the criminal charges on the board members when they're spilling the oil. You can stop this. And I'm explaining to them how to stop it. And then the one chief goes, well, you need to talk to the lawyer. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I want to talk to your lawyer? Because that's your job if you have a lawyer. But also, too, you're the chief. How come you're claiming you're a chief of a tribe and you don't even know the laws? I mean, these people don't even know the positions that they're claiming to be in, and they have no knowledge of what it is. And that's why we're all having the problems we're having today. So when it comes down to it, we can stop this stuff with this filing your rights, filing it in the courts. We all start doing this together and standing up together on it. It's waking up. And believe me, they are waking up. We see this pressure going on. Mostly it's thinking right now on what's going on in the country because people are waking up. I have filed criminal charges on her and others. I filed criminal charges on judges, and I'm not the only one. I'm about at least 200 people that I'm involved that I know who have done this around the country, but most of them keep filing with religion in it. And I'm trying to explain to them, what does religion have to do with our court system? Because technically, religion is not supposed to be in our court system. And you have to have a grand jury. You cannot go in front of a judge because a grand jury is supposed to be of your peers, not of their peers. And remember, that's where a conflict of interest statement is that if you ever go to court, you want to file, even with a jury, and any public employees cannot be on a jury because they have a conflict of interest because they're voting on their salaries. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why they keep putting all these people in grand jury. I mean, I followed up on this one in Portland, one of the clerks, from one of the state of Portland, city of Portland's organization. And I called up trying to get a hold of information and talked to her earlier in the week, and they're like, she's on grand jury. And I'm like, what is she on grand jury for? She can't be. Even Oregon state law says you can't be on grand jury when you're a public employee. And that's the one thing, because they're stacking the books in it. Because, like I said, when Jay Smith was murdered back in 1989 or 88, that was my brother-in-law when they did Measure 11. So I know about this stuff. I've been dealing with this stuff for 35 years myself. So we do have solutions to these problems. And so the best way to do the solutions is read this stuff and file the paperwork to protect ourselves. And trust me, I've been filing my paperwork, and I don't get the hassles and the stuff like most people do. When I go into the hospitals, I'm already filed. They know who I am, so I don't worry about it. And I'm not afraid to be out, in public with the police departments and stuff like this because I'm too busy telling them what to do. That's why they leave me alone and run from me. But I'm not rude to them because they are public servants. You get where I'm coming from. So, but anyhow, let me shut up and let somebody else speak up. Bring something else in.
Hey, Ed.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Remember I think it was about 6 weeks ago, you said you were working on something about that, about paying electricity?
Yes, I've got that almost down.
Okay.
When it comes down, let me go ahead and finish your statement before I cut you off again. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Also, I was going to ask you, I just read something. There was a guy, and I already probably got the answer down, but there was a guy who paid $200 to have Texas soil sent to Italy so that his son could be born on Texas soil. That still does not count. They have to be actually in country, right, to be born native. Okay.
Yeah, you can't claim that you're from this country when you're born in another country, or you can't claim that you're in this country because you're less than 5 generations. And that was determined by the Supreme Court in 1867. I mean, these things have a standing in it, and people want to change the structure in it, and it's like, that's the point. You don't want to change things. You don't want to add stuff. You want to be able to make sure that people comprehend what it really means. Because when we know what the law means, and the law is the treaties and Constitution, that's your right to have freedom of speech. If I say something that somebody doesn't like, too bad. Sticks and stones might break my bones, but names will never hurt me. When are we going to grow up and be adults again? The liberals have got it so soft. Oh, I love that when some of the women went to the Women's Crisis Creation Center. I went through a relationship with a woman that ended up going through that psychological crap, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. And then I was the bad guy. And it's like, I'm not going to play this, wham stuff. Either we're doing something or we're not. I mean, I wanted to, build the house, to have the structure, set it up so the house was on, because I got a creek bed next to me, so I could set up my property, or my soil, not property, so I could be off the grid. I mean, I got water that runs a generator. So, I mean, and these things are very important that people don't get. So if you're off the grid, and then people are saying, well, the cops are going after us because we're off the grid, and it's like, yeah, then you go after that judge, and you want his bond number, you want his insurance number, and then you want to go after him, file criminal charges on for the judge to steal your property, trying to kill you. People say, well, you can't say that because he didn't. Well, that's what he's threatening you. So when he's threatening you that way, because remember, when these cops tell me, well, Ed, are you threatening me? And I've had public employees say that to me hundreds of times. Ed, are you threatening me? I said, no, I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you what I'm going to do to you. Because I'm not going to threaten anybody. I'm going to do it. I mean, and that's the point where it comes to knowing the legal responses or the lawful point of how to file your paper and your standing to know what your standing is. Does that make sense? So when you do your bloodline history, it's proving it. If you're 3 generations, you got to make sure you got to set it up, and your brothers and sisters and your cousins know about it. Talk to them. How are they setting up? How are they trying to figure it out? I mean, and that's how we're going to save this country. We're not going to save it by praying, because praying ain't going to do nothing. It's going to be saved by actions. But do we have to go through another bloody war? I hope not. But if we go through another bloody war, that's going to open up crazy stuff and not be around the world, because then you got everybody else going to go, then we can invade the United States because all that free land, and that's the way people think. We got to go by what people really think, not the way we think. And it is interesting when you step out of the movie and you watch the production, you start thinking about how people think compared to what we think or what somebody else would think. And it is one of those things when you put these things together. Like I said, it's so simple. All right, you got a flag of Hawaii. That's the British monarch flag. How simple is that not to comprehend that, oh, shit, that's a British flag, and we're supposed to be Americans. Wait a minute. Why is the British flag there, and I'm supposed to support what? And then people say I'm supposed to pray to what? Dude, that's where I get confused, when people want to tell me how I'm supposed to pray and how I'm supposed to think. Because if you're a Christian, that's your religious, that's your belief, but it shouldn't be yelled and screamed about. You have to respect it. You have to respect mine. My religion is the Constitution and the treaties. And that's simple. That's not bad. Also, you have your religious belief. I have my religious belief, but it says in the Constitution that we're supposed to have respect and equal belief and respect one another for our beliefs. And see, that's what we need to be teaching in school, not to sit there and go, well, you believe in this and I believe in this, and so we need to have a fight over it. You believe in that, I believe in this, let's go fishing, and we don't have to talk about it. I mean, there's so many ways of solving the solution to these issues. So when we start filing our rights together, now, like I said, I'm putting out, and if you have my email me 3 times, and I will send you the other structure on the United States, how your state and federal income tax is going to the Queen of England. I am working right now trying to trace those bank accounts down. I know what the bank accounts are, but I'm trying to get them through the IMF, through the New York Stock Exchange. So, and I already did that years ago, because when I recalled the Lincoln County School Board, that was part of the structure. When I approved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, they embezzled $35 million. I approved it beyond a shadow of doubt with a guesstimate of $150 million, and everybody panicked, and the state attorney general and everybody attacked me because I was proving, it was true. So, and I mean, these things are real, what they do to us. So, and that's the point, putting this stuff out. So when you start putting the pieces together, how it all works, and the forms, see, they actually got the forms online that you don't have to pay taxes. And even says that if you're native, not to pay taxes on the IRS forms. Oregon has forms too on property, and some of the way the property forms are, we're still discussing that because they're written in a structure to keep you in the system, even though that it makes you believe as taking you out of the system if you're native, but the way it's written, it is to take you out and put you back in. And so this is the point of reading how these lawyers wrote the structure, so that way they keep their employment instead of losing their pensions and their high dollars. Everybody keeps going about the state of Oregon, besides the rest of the country, but the state of Oregon, they have no money to pay off the debts, which is a bunch of lies. The country, there is no debt, and also, too, the employees fund, they have lots of money. When I was up the House and Senate, Senator, they even got me on a YouTube video with Senator Arnie Roebland, where they stole the uninsured motorist fund. So when you register your vehicle, you're already insured. Every state does it. That goes back to the 1950s. Everybody who registered their vehicle was insured. It was $5 that went into the uninsured motorist fund. So where's the $18 billion that's been stolen? See, these are things that we really need to be asking these people, where's the money?
Yeah.
You know, and so we start asking where the money questions are, and now these people are going to start panicking because they're liable with a nonprofit, because the state and the county, everything's a nonprofit. They're liable with their own personal homes and assets. So they can lose their homes and assets. They're liable. A cop is liable with his own home. Writing you a traffic ticket, stealing your land, causing you problems. He's liable with his own assets, his own home. And so that's the point of learning how to file on them, to make the charges stick on them, to form a grand jury. That's why you have to file for a grand jury. So anyhow, I'm going to put the floor back over to anybody else like to bring something in. But are you seeing more and more how this thing starts putting together with our rights, their rights, the circumstances? Because remember, the Immigration Act and all this right stuff comes from the original structure of the original treaties, and that goes back to the original one in 1742. It was Turtle Island. I mean, it's the point. It all goes back with every generation. It wasn't recorded. Now we got technology today, and that's the way the Obama administration and everybody started panicking, because people were paying attention, and they started requesting this information and filing in courts and going after them like I've done over the last 15, 20 years. And they're all panicking now because more and more people are doing it in their personal property, not for the state funds. See, the state funds is our funds. Oregon State Senate, and they're telling me because the district attorney doesn't want the stuff publicly known about how they steal children, so they attacked me. They stole my car. I was here for a senator to videotape how they steal kids. I went to get my children's certificate. But, I mean, we already know how they do it, but, you know, we now is putting the pieces together, how they do it, what they do, and how they do the structure. And if you have never heard of the Will and Pamela Gaston case, Will and Pamela Gaston, I should be on the website. That is the one case that I personally was involved in that won $500 million against the state of Oregon. And everybody panicked on that case. And I'm still frustrated because we never got paid on it. Because the people who won the case, that everybody backed them up, and that's not just me, that's other senators and congressmen. And a lot of people were involved backing up the Gastons because everybody was being heavily attacked, but they didn't want to. They were afraid of collecting the money. If they were collecting the money, we wouldn't be in the problems still going on right now that we're living. So it's just craziness how it all comes together, how all these things work together. It's just crazy. But when you step out and you start putting it together, it's really so simple. And it, you know, remember they're nonprofit agencies. So with that, anybody else got anything they would like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to get your take on something.
All right.
Are you familiar with Batman? There's a call on TalkShoe.
Yes, I am familiar. I haven't been on that one in a while.
Okay, well, to me, they're kind of going, well, different, maybe opposite to what they're saying. Make no claims. And that way, and then they can't get joinder with you if you make no claim.
What are you talking about on your birthright?
I'm talking about on anything they've drug you into court about.
Oh, no. When they drag me into court, that's when I file criminal charges on them, and I want to make sure that they have a conflict of interest statement.
Okay. So
that's coming from is I'm not agreeing to the terms. I want to see a conflict of interest statement because they're all making $1. The city clerk, the judge, their district attorney, the bailiff, we're all making money off of the corporation, the nonprofit agency. So I want to see each and every one of their conflict of interest statements saying that they don't have a conflict, that they're able to do this job.
And is that in their statutes or code somewhere, the conflict of interest statement?
Yes, it is. And actually, I have it. And if you got my email, send me an email 3 times, and I'll send you the actual structure on it.
Okay. I sent you an email. We talked a couple weeks ago, and I sent you an email 3 times and didn't hear back from you. And actually, I was kind of worried if you were all right.
Yeah, send it to me again, because I'm in, I don't know what's been going on a little bit with Yahoo. It's been quite entertaining, because I have noticed in Yahoo, because the Queen of England owns Yahoo now. The Queen of England actually bought Verizon TV, Verizon Radio, and it's run out of Canada now. So what they've been doing is screening. And I notice when I email, I have to email twice, and they say, did you mean to email this? And we're doing this to protect your rights. And I'm like, I emailed it. What do you mean to protect my rights? And then I had one email flag popped up and says, we think that this could be a conflict of interest. Why would you email this? And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? So we already got this structure, at least in Yahoo. I've personally witnessed and seen this crap, and I just can't believe this is what's going on. But yeah, re-email me tonight, and I'll definitely be paying attention tonight. And once I see your 3 emails, I'll respond to the first one I see.
Well, it'll probably be,
Go
I
ahead.
don't have internet where I'm at, so it'll probably be tomorrow.
Right. So, and then, because I don't know if we have a conflict of interest statements yet on the website, but we got to put it so it's just conflict of interest so people can click on conflict of interest so they get the whole thing. So, and I mean, the web guy is doing the best he can. He's trying to make it as easy as possible for people to go through it. And so, and I've still got to spend more time sometimes myself going through it because I'd call him up and ask him questions. He's like, did you look? And it's like I was trying to cut a little easier, but, sometimes, we have to pay attention. So I have to admit it too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will look there first.
So, yeah, we'll get that to you. But you need to type in online conflict of interest. But also, too, I have the administrative rules, and I got to find the other administrative rules to that. Because when you file a conflict of interest statement, then you have to file it with the Department of Justice and the IRS. The complaint with them. But I don't do complaints. And people say, because they always say you have to file a complaint. I said, no, you file criminal charges. Because if you file a complaint, that's a whiner. And if you file criminal charges, they're already charging them. And that way, if you're lying, you're liable. You go to jail for slander. That's the only time they come after people when it comes to them. When it comes that they might be slanderers, the only time they go after people. When they slander people or doing what they do to us, well, we're supposed to take it. I mean, that's what they're doing to Trump right now, slandering him. And Pelosi's just having a heyday. Oh God, I can't remember the other guy's name right now. Schiff owns the Bank of England. So you got to look at these people, what their stocks are, who their nonprofits are, who owns them, and who they own. And when you start realizing that these guys own the banks and they own the nonprofit agencies, they own this, they own that. So that's how these people get away with this stuff. And but that's the thing is taking the time to do the research. And I know a lot of people don't have the time to take the time to do the research, but that's what I do all day long. Is I sit there and do this stuff, write it up, send it out, put it together. And I mean, like I say, they wrote it. That's the whole thing, premise of the talk show. They wrote it. We quote it. I quote it. They quote the administrative rules. They wrote it. I quote it. And in that way, I bring the Constitution or the federal laws against their administrative rules, so that way we know what's to protect us, not them. Because I don't care about those people, because they sure the hell don't care about me. They sure never cared about my children. They never cared about anything about what I've done.
Yep.
And so that's the whole point. Why should I care about their children? Why should I care about their homes? People say, oh, that's the Christian thing to do. Oh, be nice. Well, shit, when you're getting beat up in a street corner, are you going to just get beat up or are you going to fight back? I mean, it's really simple when it comes down to it. I'm sorry with religion, but if somebody's going to try to beat me up, I'm going to go after their livelihood. To me, it's that simple.
Well, I've got one more. It's kind of fun if you want.
Go ahead.
So imagine you're in a box, and you can stand up and turn around and all that. But there's no windows, there's no doors, there's no way out. And
sounds like a jail cell.
And you're comfortable right now, but it's getting hotter, and it's getting hotter and hotter. What do? You
can't do much when you have no way out.
Think about it 1 minute, and I'll tell you what you do.
Okay. Apparently, I'm missing something that's probably that simple.
It started out with, imagine you're in a box.
Oh,
yeah. Stop imagine. I said, well, I just imagined myself out. But the guy that told it, that was Money Mike on Batman's call. He said, yeah, just stop imagining.
He's got a point there. Yeah, just imagine, where are you going to go? Yeah, I like it when it's that simple on things.
Well, and that was kind of the whole point. All this crap we're dealing with, we've been conditioned to what all this imaginary stuff is real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not.
Well, it's like everybody keeps saying the government's real. It's not. The government ain't real. It's all made up. And right now we're running in fear of our own control because we're the ones that technically, the natives own the stocks and bonds on this, and we're the ones being told to live in fear.
Exactly.
That amazes me. You know, it's like, you know, and then they're coming out, and I guess this year they're supposed to be passing national, because more and more states are saying now that you don't need a concealed license permit to have an arm on you. Well, I've never had a concealed license permit since I started carrying when I was 16 years old. Why would I ask permission? The Constitution gives me a right so long as that I don't harm anything or anyone. So long as I don't harm anything or harm anybody, property damage, they can't bother me. And I know I used to be what they call a policy officer. That's a rent-a-cop. That's a cop. Remember, they're policy officers. So they have no rights having contact unless you're part of that policy. So the city will say, well, you're a resident, aren't you? Are you an inhabitant? You know, are you a citizen? Are you a national? No, I'm not. You know, and they did put in, I did find out where they started putting in the 1980s, where they started putting in native in some of the structure. If you're native, now that means that you're, you know, part of the corporation, and they add this shit after the fact, and that's bullshit. They can't do it. But they're doing this because people don't know how to stand up or speak out against it. And so this is how they're getting away with it, because people are afraid to speak up. Oh, it's like I've been preaching about, you know, how the state rapes children for money. If they didn't rape children, they wouldn't have the means for Christians, fathers, nuns, psychological medication, registrations, you know, these homes, all big business. Remember, religion is one of the biggest business in the world. Religion is. Everything's tied to religion or counseling, religious counseling. You know, you get a Dewey. You go into the Dewey classes. Let's talk about God. You're in an AA meeting. Oh, God. You know, what happened to being responsible? And that's my point right there. You know, I mean, I've been through the AA programs, watched people go through it. I went through that because I was told to go through it by a court because, oh, that's right, my blood alcohol was 0.000002. Not even enough to have a real reading. But they set me up, and they put me in for a Dewey on that. And so when I would go to these alcohol programs that they set me up, I would sit down. The lady who ran the class looked at me and looked at the other 28 people in the room and looked at me and said, Ed, do you want to be here? I said, hell no. And she goes, well, if you don't want to be here and everybody signs the paperwork, why don't we call it a night? So we did that. So we were at the meeting for, 8-10 minutes? We all signed the paper, so that way she got paid. We left. like I said, it's all a paper game. It's all a structure set up to have control to teach you fear. And that's the saddest part. People get into being taught fear instead of being taught how to respond. It's like the bully in the schoolyard beating you up. What are you going to do? Take it or stand up? You know? So you sucker punch him or whatever. You take it out. And then you remember next time he comes around, you're going to do it again. That way he will stop or she will stop. You know, going to court, what is the court going to do for you? Oh, we're going to do this, but if you look at the structure of police departments and the federal laws, a cop is not to defend your life. They even proved that in the Florida Parkway shooting on the high school on the kids. The Supreme Court said that the cop had no right to defend the kids, so that's why whenever he was trying to sue the cop in Florida, and they came back and said, well, you can't sue the cop has no authority to protect these children's lives in a school. And that's a fact. And people send their kids, and they don't. That's like people send their kids to school to contract. Did they sign a contract in the school that says you can't steal my kid? No, they didn't. They assume that they can't take their kids from the school district, cannot let their kids go, and they do it all the time. But you didn't sign a paperwork saying that you're going to hold the principal, the teachers, and everybody financially liable. If you sign that and you put that in the school records, trust me, they won't mess with your kid. Your kid will never have a problem. If that makes sense.
It's a paper world here on the flat earth.
Well, you got to remember the Democrats created the paper, or actually, when it really comes down to it, the Roman Catholic Church, and that goes back to Rome, started the paper structure. Oh, there's a very good video I want to recommend to everybody. It's SNL, Saturday Night Live video, and type in Greek gods, and watch the Greek gods video they did on Saturday Night Live. It explains their system so damn well, it's too funny. I was really shocked when I saw that, and I don't know if we have it on the website. We haven't got clarifications to do that, but I'll send it out to anybody who sends me an email or go on the website. So I'll put them on the new.org and Facebook channel, and Recall Cape Brown Facebook and pages. I'll put that up again. But that video is so hilarious because it explains the whole system, what the Greek gods did, and including with finance. We created democracy. We can kill it, or we just go to the banker, and if the banker doesn't want to do what we tell him, we're going to kill the banker. It's a good comedy sketch. I do recommend people take a look at it. So, I mean, they got a lot of good stuff on Saturday Night Live. But remember, Saturday Night Live is run by, Canada, out of New York City. New York City is owned by the Vatican, and New York City is not part of the United States, we the people. The state of New York City is, but not New York City. It's still run by the Vatican, and that's part of the Ninth Circuit Court in Washington, D.C. Of the Washington, D.C. Court. And so, and that's the other point, knowing that you're an administrative court or knowing if you are in a Constitution court. And those are big things to know the separation of the lawful and legal difference. So, anybody else who got anything they would like to bring up?
If I may?
Yeah.
Okay, there's been a lot of buzz about the gun thing in Virginia this week. There's even some talk about a new false flag event, you know, to try and start another civil war.
Yes.
So I wondered, what do you guys think about all that?
Well, I think it's really ridiculous because, see, all they have to do is file on their senators' treason charges and file it in Washington, D.C., in Philadelphia, and start it that way and go after to defund the state of their legal system. And they could have their legal system shut down within, 72 hours by file. If 1,000 people filed on the state legal system for treason, they would have no choice to shut it down. But they won't shut it down because they would have to comply. Because if they do that, everybody loses their job in the state. But they know that people are not smart enough to joiner and those type of things because everybody wants to go to war or fight. And they've made the paper system. We could do it by the paper system. That's what stuns me, how we're not doing it by the paper system. If that makes sense. So, I mean, and I know that right now they have been confiscating guns, and it's not public knowledge. I've got a few videos that were sent to me, and they were posted on Facebook, where the cops are actually going into people's homes to take their arms. And see, that's what gets to me, is how come the neighborhoods ain't standing together? You know, that's the one thing, is knowing your neighbor. Are you guys going to be able to stand together? Because if you stand together, they're not going to wipe out the neighborhood. They're going to go to another neighborhood that people ain't going to stand together. And people start, the cops have no authority, and realizing they have no authority, that's the one way we can stop it. I think it's a bunch of bullshit, but I think that people need to file on the cops for treason, trespassing, and extortion even before it happens. File on them. Because if we want to, go ahead.
So according to you, our future is grim.
No, actually, our future is not grim if we're filing and standing up. I'm standing up, and I'm not paying, you know, I've got things that are turning around in my favor now because of the paperwork I'm filing. So it's not grim. I wouldn't say, and that's not more, go ahead, finish your statement.
It just says it's grim if we don't do anything.
That's right, that's the main point right there, you got it. So yeah, we just stand by and let it happen, but the main thing is teaching us how to do it correctly. You know, and that's the point that I keep stressing to people. Stay away from the religion part, because when you go into these courts, it is religion. Going into their religious structure of their court system, of their religion. Go in with the Constitution and the native treaties, that's what they have to go by. They don't want people to know that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, oh yes, it makes a lot of sense. When you go to court, and if you don't know what you do in court, you are finished.
No, you got a point there. If you don't know what you're doing in court, you are finished. But that's why I always suggest to people to file a Freedom of Information Act. You know, if they don't respond, you keep filing back, and you keep filing back, and you can't go, and then you have to always put in, you can't go to court because they haven't responded to your Freedom of Information Act, so they're acting illegally, unlawfully. And that's what I do because I haven't been in a court system in some time myself, because they just run away from me pretty much most of the time now. And that's what some people, what I've helped filed on, and I'm trying to explain to people, this way, I'm suggesting how you should file. And this is what's scaring people, because what I've been filing has been working, at least in my case. I go in the hospital. I don't sit there and go that. I just tell the people when I walk in, they go, we need your ID. I don't have state ID. I'm not a state employee. You have to have ID. I said, no, I don't. You know, and you don't have to have state ID. You know, and this is the other thing that gets to me, is like Yahoo now is putting this up, that on an email I just sent out, you know, to protect your privacy, Yahoo Mail has blocked remote images in this message to protect you. Now, this has been going on. This just started after the first of the year. Yahoo is doing this to protect you. So, in other words, this is free speech already by the Queen of England dictating to you how to live. And that's exactly where this is coming from, the Queen of England, London. It's like the Queen of England put out in 2006, what I thought was hilarious to people. You know, the Queen says, oh, The Queen offers to restore British rule over the United States, and she came out publicly said this October 2016. So this was already in the national newspapers and all this stuff, and people didn't catch it. You know, they just thought, oh, well, that doesn't mean nothing. And now she's talking about the United States, not the United States Corporation. And people don't know the separation of the United States versus the United States Corporation of Inc. People don't know the difference. That's the problem. We don't have proper education. Because if they knew it was that, they wouldn't support that stuff. But people don't know it. They're, you know, or they need, we need a Democrat. We need a democracy. We need liberalism. All you want is republic. If you don't have republic, if there's no injured party, no personal property damage, there's no crime. That's how simple it really is. So, anybody else got anything they would like to further add? So it's 7:15. With that, we'll call it an evening. We've been going on for 2 hours, 15 minutes. And yes, I still want to get the other information on talk show and send that to me, and I'll get the emails back to you, because I could have sworn I emailed you back, but I'll do that when I tell everybody else do it 2 or 3 times. I'll do it back to you 2 or 3 times. But with that, we'll call it an evening, and then we'll meet next Saturday. Now I'm going to have some other paperwork filed and drawn. But this is the point that is putting this stuff together, and you can do the same thing. It's like in the state of Oregon, several counties have been putting together petitions in the counties to make sure that we're not giving up our arm rights. So they're filing in their counties to be armed. And 6 counties in Oregon have already passed it just in the last 6 months that, you know, in their counties, you could have guns, be armed, travel with guns on your hip. You know, there's no concealed license permit. It's all about responsibility, and that's the point we need to get back to, responsibility. So with that, we'll call it an evening, and may the Creator, the Great Spirit, and Mother Earth feed you, look over you, and take care of you.
Thank you, Ed.